Good afternoon. Welcome back to another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. You are tuned into marketing mistakes every photographer needs to avoid, myself included. Sandra Coan, what's going on? Good to have you back.
Hey, thanks. I'm so excited to be here. I always love visiting my B&H friends.
We always love having you. It's not as fun as it used to be
I
when you were
know.
actually visiting us in New York, but
I
hey,
know. I
we'll
miss that.
I know we miss it too, but we'll take it. I want to send a huge thank you to everyone joining us out there, Sandra. We have people join us from the outer reaches of the internet, so you guys already know the
Love
deal.
it.
If you do have any questions, feel free to get them in. But we're going to be talking marketing today. For once we got you on here, we're not talking about lighting. I feel like that's always like it's always lighting, and posing and all this stuff. But we're going to get into the business side of things today, and the market surely has changed, and marketing itself has changed over since the pandemic and even
Mhm.
just with technology and social media and everything now. So we're
Yeah.
we're gonna let you get to it, Sandra. You're the expert here, not me. So for everybody out there watching, get those questions in. We'll join Sandra in a little bit for some Q&A, but Sandra, show is yours.
All right, let's take it away. I'm just going to share my screen really quick. And let's get started. Okay, so first of all, welcome the internet and everybody out there. I'm so excited you're here. I am so excited to be here today talking about marketing because marketing matters now more than ever, especially for photographers. And I feel like we all know this, right? There's more competition than ever before. Consumers are way more discerning than they used to be. And the old ways of marketing really don't work as well as they used to. And the problem is most photographers are kind of stuck in these old ways of marketing. And so because of that, I see a lot of really talented people struggling in their business. And I don't want that for you. So during this training, we are going to learn a lot of things. Okay, we're going to talk about some of the common marketing mistakes photographers make, how those marketing mistakes really impact your ability to stand out in our saturated industry, to pull in the right kind of clients, to build a business that really serves you and the people you work with. We're going to talk about what you need to focus on in your marketing to get the results that you want. Honestly, it might be a little different than what you think you know. So that's what we're going to get to today. Really quick, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sandra Coan. I'm an award-winning photographer. I've been doing this for a really long time, well over 20 years. I'm a certified teacher, so I actually went to teacher school to learn how to teach people, and I'm an industry educator. I'm a best-selling author. I'm a really proud top Westcott pro, and I'm a marketing strategist. And I started my business, like a lot of people do, as a side hustle. Way back in 1999. At the time, I was a full-time elementary school teacher, and I honestly just wasn't making enough money on my teacher salary to support me. I was, despite the fact I had a full-time job, I was actually qualified for food stamps my first year. And so I needed something to supplement my income. And so I started a photography business on the side, even though at the time I didn't own my own camera. I was actually borrowing a camera from my boyfriend, and then I married him, so it was fine. But now I run a multiple six-figure photography studio here in Seattle, Washington. I support my family doing what I love, and that feels really good. But of course, that's the highlight reel, right? In reality, like the first half of my career was very bumpy. And I actually got to the point in 2007 where I almost quit. I was just done. I hated my job. Just like looking at my camera made me feel sick. I was completely burnt out. And I was so frustrated because I felt like I was working so hard, but my business just wasn't making the kind of money that we needed it to for my family. And what was really frustrating about this time, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, is I knew I was a really talented photographer. I knew I was really good at my craft. But the problem was I didn't know the first thing about how to run a business or market myself. And so instead of quitting, I decided to get curious, and I started studying business, like business fundamentals. I didn't want to just learn marketing trends, right? I wanted to dig deep and really get to the root of the problem. So I learned about branding. I learned about marketing. And then from what I learned, I developed a system that helped me start standing out in my very saturated industry, like market here in Seattle, and start pulling in the right kind of clients. Now, I still study marketing all the time. I'm obsessed. I find it really, really fun and really exciting. And I also still use that original marketing system that I developed for myself all those years ago in my business. And I really credit it with helping me grow my business to where it is now. Now, this is the exact same system that I've taught to hundreds of photographers from around the world in my coaching program. And I'm going to share it with you today. So take lots of notes. This is really good stuff, okay? Now, I did want to share a little bit of my story, and I wanted to be honest about my struggles, because I feel like I'm not alone. A lot of photographers start the same way I did, right? They're great at photography, but they're not so great at the business side of photography. And that causes a lot of problems. Actually, when I was preparing for this talk today, I did a little research, and I found that it's reported that like 60% of photographers fail within their first year of business. And then out of the remaining 40%, another 25% will fold in their second year. And so that means only 15% of people who start a photography business even make it to year 3. And then it drops from there. So really the takeaway from all of that is that you've got to understand the business side of photography to make it in the photography industry. All right. And knowing how to effectively market yourself is step 1. So that, of course, is why you're here. So let's get to it. So first of all, what is marketing? Well, friends, marketing is not the same thing as selling. And a lot of photographers get that confused. All right. Marketing is an activity that involves identifying your client's needs and then pointing out how you can help them. It really is a journey that you take people on that leads them into a relationship with you and your business. I tell the photographers I coach, marketing is just a fancy word for communication. Really, it's how we communicate what we do to and what we have to offer to our potential clients. It's how we let them know how we can help them get what they want or what they need. And yes, people need photography, and there's ways that you can talk about that and really like lean into that message. It teaches people why they want to work with us, really. And as photographers, we are kind of a unique industry because there are different ways that we communicate those things to our clients. Now, the first way that we communicate is through our photos, right? That's obvious. And that's why it's so important to have such a really good, strong, consistent portfolio so people know exactly what they're going to get when they work from you. And so sharing our photos is a form of communication, a form of marketing that we do. But we also communicate what we have to offer our clients with our passions, with our unique approach, our unique, point of view as artists, our insights. And modern marketing is all about leveraging those things. So it's about leveraging your skill as an artist, as well as your unique gifts, what you bring to your work to better serve your clients. Now, I'm going to get into that a little deeper, but what I want you to know is that the real problem I see photographers have with marketing is that most of us have only ever been taught traditional, kind of outdated forms of marketing. And that can cause some problems. So traditional marketing is what most of us think of when we think of marketing. And it looks like this. I'm sure a lot of you recognize this. This is like that traditional marketing funnel, right? And how traditional marketing funnels work is that we're told to create a lot of content, put it out there, pictures, whatever, out there all the time. And then through that, we hope to get people to come in and contact us. So reach out, make a phone call, send us an email, something like that, where we can make contact with them. At that point, we tend to go into the sales pitch, right? That's where we try to convince them to work with us. So we talk a lot about pricing and packages and, what we have to offer. Sorry, I had a hiccup there. What we have to offer, try to convince them to become our clients. So with the traditional marketing funnel, the marketing was really focused on the sale, and the sale is the end goal. Now, when you're talking about marketing and marketing content, we tend to talk about a who, what, and where, right? Like, who are we talking to, or who are we talking about? What are we talking about? And then where are we putting all that information? And with traditional marketing, when you're using that traditional funnel, the who tends to be from the point of the photographer. So it tends to be marketing copy that the photographer thinks is important to share, right? The what focuses on the sale. So this is where we're positioning price and time spent with our clients and the actual physical product as the value. And the where, is oftentimes hidden, And that's like when I'm talking about that convince part in that sales funnel. So to learn more, then clients or potential clients are required to reach out, to schedule a call, to get on an email, to ask for a secret PDF, where they can see things, more about your services. And these strategies totally work. Don't get me wrong. I have used sales funnels myself in the past, but it's getting outdated. And one of the reasons why it's becoming outdated is it feels very aggressive to a client. It also can lead to burnout for photographers. And this part's really, really important. It tends to breed this kind of competition, hustle culture mentality that I think we're all just over at this point, to be honest. Okay. Now, modern marketing is all about service and connection. So we're getting rid of that traditional marketing funnel, right? And instead we're going client-centered. And so a modern marketing approach looks more like this, all right? Where the client's at the center. And then our who, what, and where has that in mind. So now the who with modern marketing, instead of it being about the photographer and what the photographer thinks is important, it's really from the point of view of the client and what the client thinks matters, what matters to the client, what they want to know about. All right. The what focuses on relating then to your clients, relating to their struggles, to their questions, to their concerns, to their needs, right? And then using your marketing to educate them, to inform them, to really serve them. And then the where is everywhere. So instead of having pieces of marketing content that's hidden or that requires a client reaching out to us, we're sharing it everywhere. So it's all over our website. It's on our blog. I'm going to talk to you about blogging. If you hate blogging, I'm hoping to change your mind today, okay? Because it's a great place where you can speak to your client, right? So your blog, your social media captions, your email campaigns. It really is using all those forms of marketing to serve your client. And what's great about this is that when you're really showing up in your marketing channels to serve your client, first of all, it positions you as an expert. Clients begin to see you as somebody who really knows what they're talking about, who's passionate about their craft, who knows how to help them, who knows what their needs are, who can lead them into a really great experience. So they're going to be super duper happy, right? And that builds trust and likability. And honestly, people want to work with businesses that they like and trust. Right? And that's one of the reasons why this modern marketing approach is so effective. But it's not the only reason. This is where it gets really fun, okay? Because when you're using your marketing channels to educate people, to inform people, to really serve them, you're going to end up creating marketing content that people want to engage with. So they're reading it, they're liking it. They're making comments, they're sharing, they're saving, that sort of thing. And when that happens, you create what's called in the marketing world, a flywheel. So what a flywheel is the more marketing content you're creating, where you're talking to people, you're informing them about, what they need to know, you're really educating them, you're serving them. Again, they stop it, they read it, they like it, they share it, they begin to engage with it. And then that signals those algorithm overlords that rule our lives that you're creating content people care about. Now, it is the job of every algorithm out there to take information and put it in front of people who need it, want it, are interested in it. And so when you're creating content with your marketing channels that people are taking the time to engage with, that signals those bots that you have really good content. And so they're going to boost you up in the algorithm. All right. So that means you're going to get a boosted SEO. You're going to be boosted on social media. You're going to start creating emails that are going to be showing up in people's inboxes versus their spam folder. You're going to start getting referrals. And once you start getting boosted, then of course, more people are going to have the opportunity to engage with that content. Right. And so it just boosts you even further. And this creates this momentum with your marketing channels that creates that flywheel. So your marketing becomes like exponential. It grows exponential. So instead about it just being focused to one sale, suddenly it's growing without you having a lot of effort. Content that you wrote a year ago can still be working for you in this way. And it becomes really, really powerful. And you begin to build a marketing program that runs on autopilot. All right. So creating marketing content that educates, that informs, that serves, it's really helpful. It's going to boost you up. It's going to serve your clients. It's also really fun, okay? Because it takes all the sail out of what you're doing. So I really, it can be a lot of fun, but to get to that point where it's fun and where you're really showing up and serving, there are some common mistakes that you need to avoid. Mistakes that we get from thinking in these old traditional ways of marketing. So let's talk about that for just a second. Okay. So mistake number one. Okay. The biggest mistake I see people make in their marketing is doing what they think they should do. Okay, doing what you think you should do. So what do I mean by that? This is what I mean. Every single one of us has things that we are drawn to. We have unique ways that we see the world, right? And we all know this. So that's why you can go to a conference or go to a workshop or something and have every photographer in the room photographing the same thing. And everybody's work is going to look a little bit different. And that happens because there aren't two people on the entire planet who have the ability to see something the exact same way. And I think that that's something that we take for granted, but is really important to understand and to think about as visual artists, right? We all have unique interests. We all have unique ways of seeing. We all have unique points of view, unique personalities that we bring to our work. And honestly, that unique point of view is probably what made you pick up your camera in the first place. But for some reason, as soon as we start charging for what we do, we stop trusting that unique point of view. And we start looking around and seeing what everybody else is doing. And we buy into this false belief that in order to be successful, we need to shoot a certain way or shoot a certain subject and be like everyone else, right? So that leads us into chasing trends, trying to produce work that we think our clients want, instead of just showing up and creating work that is authentic to us. So I've done this in my own business. Okay. So at the very beginning, I started my career in 1999 as a maternity photographer. Like I said, I was teaching at the time, but it quickly started to grow and I was doing maternity work. And then I moved on to doing, newborns, because, that's how that goes. And it got to the point where my photography business had surpassed my teaching income. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to quit. I'm going to take it full time. And when I did that, I quit and I took it full time. I launched myself as a photojournalistic wedding photographer out of nowhere. And I'd never even shot a wedding at that point. It's a little embarrassing. But the reason I did that was because every other photographer that I was meeting at the time that I thought was successful, that looked successful in my eyes, that was making money doing this, was a wedding photographer. And the trend was photojournalism at the time because it was the 90s. And so I thought that in order to be successful, I had to do that too. So I did. I'm not a wedding photographer. I don't enjoy it. And that's why I got to that place of just such deep burnout that I was ready to quit in 2007. And there's a huge lesson for that. And I've seen so many photographers make a similar mistake, right? Where we lean into doing what we think we should do, what we think our clients want, what we think the direction the market is going, instead of just showing up and doing what we do. And I'll tell you this, chasing trends is not going to lead to long-term success or to long-term happiness. It's the quickest way to burn yourself out. And so what I tell people that if you want to really be successful, you do need to figure out what it is that you do, what that unique point of view is, what that passion is, what you bring to your art that only you can give. You got to get clear on that. And then you have to be willing to fearlessly do it, because it sounds all easy to be like, go follow your bliss, but it can be actually really scary, right? But this is what happens when you do. And this is step one to building a really solid marketing plan. Because when you can figure out what your unique point of view is, right? And you do it, you start showing up and doing it. First of all, your work is going to become really authentic. It's going to start to take on a feature that is very clearly yours. It's also going to become really unique because, again, you're the only person who can do it. Okay. And it will become instantly recognizable. This is how people build a signature style, and we've all seen it. I'm sure you've been scrolling through Instagram and you see somebody's photo come up and you know who that photographer is before you ever read who it is, right? Well, that's because when your work is unique, when it's authentic, when it's instantly recognizable, those are the three things that make up a really strong, solid brand, especially a solid brand as a visual artist. And creating a solid brand is how you start to stand out in the industry. Okay. It's how you start to stand out in that saturated market. Because when you are chasing trends, when you're doing what you think you should be, the problem is you become one of many, because there's so many photographers who are doing that. So there's nothing out there that's going to be able to differentiate you from the hundreds of other photographers who are trying to do the same thing. You're going to get lost in the crowd. Okay. And you can't build a profitable business that way. You do not want to be one of many. You want to stand out. You want to be special. You do want to be different. And there's little ways that you can do that. Okay. So you need to stop doing what you think you should do. Stop chasing the trends, put on blinders, don't even look at other people's work if it helps. And instead figure out what it is that you do, what your passion is, what you bring to your work that only you can do, and just do it. All right. Marketing mistake number 2. This is another big one, is thinking that being good at photography is enough. And friends, this is a really tricky mistake, because being a good photographer obviously is super important to your job, right? You're never going to build a profitable photography business if you can't take consistently good photos. But if you're going to make money at your art, being good at it isn't enough. Sadly, talented artists go out of business every day. To make money at your art, you also have to have real clarity around what you do and who you serve. That's that branding piece I was just talking about, right? What do you do? Who are your people? Start there, okay? Then you need to understand how what you do, that unique thing that only you can do, right, meets the needs of the people you work with, that meets the needs of the people you serve. And then you need to plan a communication, plan around that using those modern marketing techniques. So again, communication is just fancy word for marketing. So when you're like, this is what I do, example, I'm a studio photographer. I work with babies and kids. I shoot on film. I'm a studio photographer, but I don't pose babies. Like I have like all sorts of weird things that make up like my brand. But I also know there's a portion of the population who really wants that and needs that. And so knowing what I do, I can then speak directly to those people. I can talk about why I don't pose newborns in my work. I can talk about what, my approach, what I bring, my years as an educator, all these things that I can bring to my work. I can talk about that in my communication plan and really reach those people who are an ideal fit for me. And then the third piece is consistency. So consistency in your work. Yeah. You need to make sure that the photos you're sharing are a good representation of your brand consistently across the board. Okay. But you also need consistency in your communication. So consistency on your website, consistency in the words you're talking about on your social media, consistency with your blog, anywhere that you talk to your clients, you need to have a consistent message and you need to be willing to show up and do it consistently. So you're not doing this start, stop, yo-yo marketing thing. Okay. Marketing is a marathon. Okay. It is not a sprint. So to show up to your marketing, you need to be willing to play the long game. All right. And those 3 things, the clarity, communication, and consistency, they really are the foundations of building a solid marketing plan and building that kind of marketing plan that I was talking about that can work for you, that flywheel effect. All right. So a solid marketing plan, not just the ability to take pretty pictures, really is essential if you're going to have a long-term career in this industry. Okay, mistake number 3, winging it. Friends, okay, winging it comes from just not having a plan in place. And honestly, this is how most photographers approach their marketing. And you can just raise your quiet, digital hand if this is you, all right, where you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to post a picture on Instagram every once in a while, right? You're winging it in your marketing when you start seeing these symptoms. Okay. So if you are posting pictures every once in a while, or, to Instagram, but you're not getting any engagement, so no one is liking your pictures, commenting, sharing, that sort of thing, that's a marketing problem. All right. When you have a website that is full of pretty pictures, but you're not ranking anywhere on Google, also a marketing problem. When you have nothing to talk about, when you feel like, I don't know what to blog about, or you don't blog at all because you feel like it's pointless, that's a marketing problem. Your blog is actually one of the best places that you can use on the internet to market your business, especially if you want to grow your SEO. But you have to know what to talk about, right? So if you have no idea what to talk about, then that's a marketing problem. When you don't have a system for collecting client emails or creating newsletter campaigns that people actually want to open and read, that's a marketing problem. When you're winging it, you have no idea how to find your clients, or how to book clients consistently. And you oftentimes see what you feel like are less talented photographers dominating your area, and you wonder how they're doing it, right? You wake up every day and you wonder how you're going to make this photography thing happen. And so you get desperate and you fall into that first mistake I was talking about, where you start chasing trends, right? You're spying on your competition to see what they're doing. Worst of all, I see this all the time, you're asking for business advice from strangers on the internet. Okay. That is like, it's not going to help. Okay. And it's also exhausting. It doesn't work. Winging it hurts your marketing efforts, but it also hurts your overall business, because when you're winging it, it's going to create problems with your onboarding and communication with your clients. That's going to lead to poor sales or no sales, lost orders, forgotten emails, missed opportunities, inconsistent marketing, that yo-yo effect that I was talking about. You're going to waste your time and your money, and you're going to cause a lot of stress and frustration. But when you do have a plan in place, when you sit down and you're really thoughtful about creating your marketing plan, then it makes communicating with your potential clients really feel effortless. And like I was saying, even fun. I'm going to tell you how to do it in just a sec. So it also turns your followers into fans before they ever work with you. And this is, like, I think, one of the most exciting aspects of this modern marketing approach, because when you're constantly talking to people, when you know them so well and you're talking to them about what they need and you're educating and informing them, they get this sense that you know them before they've ever met you. You know, like, yeah, I had that question. Yeah, I was worried about that. You know, and again, you're building that trust. And so people really begin to feel connected to you before they've ever worked with you. And when your followers are your fans in that way, when they reach out to you, when they finally do make contact with you, you don't have to go into that convince phase, right? They're reaching out to you in order to book. And this really eliminates ghosting, because you're not, people aren't just sending you an email to ask you 1,000 questions. They're reaching out to you because they're like, I'm here for it. Like, let's go. That's going to save you time, and you're not going to be spending, endless hours answering, emails. It's also going to help you rank on search engines like Google. It's going to help you boost in your social media. It's going to help you create that marketing flywheel that we were talking about, increase booking, generate positive reviews, all the good things. Okay. So now the question is, how do you do that? Okay. That all sounds great. How do you do that? Well, the easiest way to start creating this kind of content for your people is just to look through your emails, like look through your client emails, right? What are they asking when people do reach out to you? What do they want to talk to you about? Think about past conversations that you've had with people. Again, what are questions that they ask? What do they want to know? What are they concerned about? See if you can identify those frequently asked questions and concerns. Write them all down. Okay. So for me, with the kind of work I do, I get a lot of like, what should I wear to my session? How do I prepare for my newborns? What's the best age? Those sorts of things that people are concerned about. What if my child misbehaves? This is a big fear that my people have. So you take all those things, those concerns, those questions, the thing, things that people should know about you if they're going to work with you, like I make it very clear. Yes, I'm a newborn photographer, but I'm not going to pose your baby. I have a lot of reasons for that. I write about it all the time. You write all those questions down, you write those concerns down, you make a list, and then from that list, you begin to make marketing content. All right. So actually writing it out to pair with your words. So then you're sharing this marketing content on your website. So these are just screenshots of things off of my homepage where I talk about why I don't pose babies. It's a huge part of my brand. I'm very passionate about it. I have huge reasons for it. I talk about it. I educate my clients before they ever walk through my door. I'm telling them, how they need to prepare, what they need to know. So that's sprinkled all over my website. I'm also really using this kind of content on my blog. One of the biggest mistakes photographers make on their blog is that they use it as an extension of their portfolio. It's like they'll just post pretty pictures and say things like, oh, this lovely wedding here, or the so-and-so family, or whatever. Nobody cares about the so-and-so family. No one's sitting down to Google searching the so-and-so family. They want information about what they need to know. So use your blog, take those new pictures and then pair them with really good content that people actually care about. So like, again, what to wear to a family session, what to bring to your baby's first year session. I did a lot of blog posts about COVID safety and what people need to know when we were at the height of that. How to incorporate older children, how we get them comfortable, what they need to know. Again, why don't pose babies, talk a lot about that. So you're creating this information that people want to read because these are actual questions that they have and that they care about. You do the same thing on social media. So you're creating, instead of having captions where you're like, oh my God, baby toes are the cutest or whatever, nobody cares about that. Like everybody knows babies are cute. Instead, you're talking to them about things they actually care about, things that they're concerned about, things you want them to know. You're using all your marketing channels to really educate your people. All right. So use your marketing to talk to clients about things that they care about. And when you do that, you're going to start creating that flywheel. I tell the photographers that I coach that you want to be a help desk, right? You want to be a concierge. You want to be a place where people can come, ask their questions, get them answered, and really learn something. You do not want to be a billboard where you're just constantly selling, selling, selling. All right. This is the most important thing that I want to tell you. A lot of photographers get really freaked out about marketing and they tell themselves that it's hard and it's scary, whatever. Marketing is a creative activity. And when you start thinking about that way, you realize that you're a creative person, and that's a part of your brain that you don't have to train. It's already there. You're a creator. So allow yourself to see marketing as an extension of your creative process and have fun with it. All right. So that's what I have for you today. That was really fast. I just tore through that. So I hope people have a lot of questions. If you do have questions, if you want to know more, I have a lot of free resources because I create marketing content for my people about things that they care about. So you can reach out to me, send me a DM on Instagram, tell me you want to know more, and I will hook you up.
Wonderful. Sandra, thank you so much. As always, you did tear through that. You were on a roll. So we figured
I was just like going. I don't even know, do we have so much time?
that's good. No, you're good. We have as much time or as little time as you need. So we'll dive right into the questions. We have Colton joining us from Facebook asking, hey, Sandra, maybe you will answer this yet, but how would you go about identifying what you do? What sort of information do you figure out to say, this is my style and this is how I shoot?
That's such a good question. And it's something that people ask a lot. And so what I like to tell people is go back and look at the images that you were creating before you ever thought you'd be a professional photographer. There's so much information there. So for example, when I was a little girl, I think I was like 9 years old or something. And my dad bought me my first camera, little point and shoot, like Kodak thing, and had this like wheel film that you would stick in. And I would build little pretend studios in my bedroom with like sheets and backdrops, and I would photograph my dolls, like rolls and rolls of film photographing my dolls, right? That's basically what I do now, except with like real life babies. But I feel like, as artists, we really are drawn to things that if we start paying attention, we can see the through line. Like fast forward, I'm a high school student, my first trip ever to Europe, right, to France. And we were sitting with my high school French class, and we're sitting in front of the Louvre. Everybody's taking pictures of the pyramids, and I'm taking pictures of the people's faces sitting in front of the pyramids, right? Because I'm a portrait photographer, So there are little clues about things that you can look at. I also think it's really important to really just kind of ask yourself, even if it's like a journaling activity or whatever, but, really think about like, what do you love? Like, what lights you up? Like, what are you excited to shoot? What is that thing that you could do over and over again 1,000 times and never get sick of it? I work in a studio. I do basically the same thing. Every single client who comes through my door, I'm going into my 24th year of business. And people are always like, aren't you sick of doing that? I'm like, I'm sure not, because I freaking love it, right? Like I could do it 1,000 times over and over again. We all have things like that. And then, so start with looking there and really paying attention to that, like intentionally. Also, like get into like your feels, right? Like when you're doing something because you feel like you should do, or, like, how does it make you feel? Like, I remember how I felt when I was shooting weddings, and I dreaded it. I'd be so stressed out. I was a nightmare for my family to be around, like it was just not a good fit for me. And my body was telling me. But, when I go and I do my portrait work, I'm relaxed, I'm happy, it lights me up, it energizes me. So really pay attention to those things too.
Perfect. Now I kind of want to piggyback off this a little bit, because we talk about all the time, and we actually just had this conversation the other day with a commercial photographer regarding What do you put on the website? How do you market yourself on your website? So now I want to flip it over to your side for people who are doing your style of photography. You're hiring family, or being hired by families, and you're doing family shoots, babies, stuff like that. Do they pay as much attention to what's on your website? And is your branding, as far as how you market yourself on your website, as important to being hired?
Absolutely, I think so. And it's kind of like, what I was talking about, like one of the ways that we brand ourselves as a photographer is with our images. And that is why doing that exercise I was talking about, like really getting crystal clear on what do you do? What's your voice? And then making sure that that is consistent in your work. And then that consistency is shown on your website. So like if you go to my website, you're never going to see outdoor photos of a family in a field or whatever. I still do that sometimes for people, right? Because I've been doing this for a long time. And when people have adult children, they're not going to bring them into the studio and lay down on my bed in the studio, right? So like I do other things, but I'm never going to show that because it's not consistent with my brand. And it's really important to me that the images that I'm showing and what I'm communicating through my website and through my blog and through my social media is really a good representation of what people are going to get if they hire me. Because that's good communication. So you're pulling in the right people, but also it eliminates unhappy clients. Because if you're showing one thing and then people come in and they get something completely different, there's potential for a problem there. So I do think like having real brand consistency. And when I'm talking about brand, I'm not talking about your fonts or your colors or whatever. I'm talking about brand consistency with your images. I do think that that's really important.
Interesting, because I never would have thought about that. Even the difference between studio and outdoor, even if it's okay, it's family, it's children, it's the same thing. I never would have thought to make a distinction between the two, in studio and out studio. So that's super enlightening for me, because you would think normally, okay, well, it's family, why would it not? But I guess it all comes back to setting that expectation early on from the gate. You're getting the clients that you want to get, the clients that are hiring you for what you do and nothing else. So that way, if someone's not happy with your style, they're not going to hire you, right?
They're not going to hire you. And that's what I'm talking about too. It's like, that's how you eliminate ghosting. Because, one thing I hear from people all the time is they're so frustrated because they get people reaching out to them or making contact with them, and then they never hear from those people again. Those people don't book. That's a marketing problem. That's a consistency with your brand problem. Because what that tells me is when people are having that problem is that they're not making it crystal clear what it is that they do. Because, people are confused. And so they're reaching out to ask all these questions, but when you're crystal clear, it's like, this is what I do. And you either love it or you hate it. And that's okay. You want your marketing to repel people as much as you want it to pull in the right people. And so like, when I'm talking about like really figuring out what it is that you do and then doing it, it took me, it was like these little tiny baby steps involved to do that, because it feels really scary. So for years, I would have like I was like, oh, I just want to work in the studio. I just want to do studio. It really lights me up. That's what I love. But I feel like people really want outside still, and I still get inquiries for outside. So I'm going to keep this gallery up for outside stuff just in case. But then it was confusing, because then what do I do? And then people would book me for outdoor work, and then I didn't want to do outdoor work. And so then I was unhappy. And then, you know what I mean? So when I just was like, get brave enough to take it down, and it was scary because, that's income, right? But when I was willing to take that down and be like, this is what I do, suddenly my calendar's full of people who just want that, because that's what I'm showing.
That's incredibly helpful, because I know that's a dilemma for a lot of people out there who feel like, well, no, I don't want to turn money down. But sometimes turning money away initially ends up bringing you more money down the road, and happier money that doesn't complain as much.
So happier money that is a joy to make, and then you're not going to burn yourself out.
Exactly.
Right? Because burnout's a real problem for photographers.
Oh,
and
totally.
Burnout totally comes from when it switches from a joy to a job, a JOY to a JOB. And that happens when you're doing work you don't want to do. And so, if you're in it for the long haul, if you're like, this is my career that I want to do, then really getting crystal clear on what that is, and then being willing to just lean into it fearlessly, is the secret to long-term success.
Interesting. Now we had a question come in from Bossy joining us on YouTube, asking how to be influenced or inspired by other photographers, but not lose your own identity. So how do you get inspired by other photographers, but not lose yourself in their work or becoming too much of what they produce?
What they produce, that is such a great question. And again, that's something I really struggled with. And there was a time where I just couldn't look at anything. I just had to like tunnel vision on my work because of that problem. What I've found now, again, it's really about like checking into your body, right? Because you can tell the difference between like appreciation, like that is beautiful. And oh my God, look at that use of light. And when it switches into a more toxic place and you start feeling competitive and like, I need that, like that's a big sign. But I also like what I find inspiring now is when I do see people who are so in their lane, right? Where it's just like slow clap, like your work is like so consistent. You so clearly know what you do. Like that is so inspiring to me. That's so brave. That's so like beautiful. Like that's where I get inspiration. Like you can appreciate, there's so much work out there that I love that I just don't do, but I can still appreciate and I love,
Mhm.
and I think you can be inspired in those ways by
And I
other
feel like
people's creativity. Sorry. Yeah.
no one's reinventing the wheel, right?
No.
We're all doing the same thing, give or take. And sometimes you have somebody who comes along who changes the game a little bit. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's a trend and it's like here today, gone tomorrow. So I think right, there's something to be said for just being comfortable. As long as you're comfortable, you keep driving home this being comfortable in what you produce and knowing who you are and knowing what your brand is and knowing your identity. And that's really the key, right?
Oh, absolutely. It totally is the key. 100%. Um, and yeah, everybody's doing a version of the same thing, but nobody can do it the same way.
Mhm.
Like, I'm a newborn photographer who works in studio. Like I just described like half of the world, right? But there's a unique way that I bring it. There's a unique, my personality. There's the way I choose to work with babies, where I don't close it. I shoot film. I use studio lighting. I do like, there's all these little tiny differences in the way I approach my work that has helped me create my brand that is specific to me. And I can teach my process, and I do, because I'm all about sharing the love, right? I can teach my exact process. I can teach people exactly how to do my light, exactly how I pose my babies. I can teach all of that, and it's still not, it's never going to look
not gonna
like
be
my
you.
work. Exactly. So that's, I think, the important part for artists to remember is like really try to find your voice in your work. I swear to God, it sounds easy. It's really hard, but it really is where the magic happens.
Totally. Now, as far as pricing, we had a question come in whether you advertise your prices online and if that does or does not affect the final conversion rate from contact to client.
I do advertise my pricing online, and I know there's a lot of opinions about this. You do you, but what I believe and what I've seen in my own work is your pricing is a form of marketing. And so it's going to attract some people, it's going to repel other people. And I would rather have my pricing out there and like show my consistent work. The people who are like, I want that, that's what I want. They're going to pay whatever, right? And the people who aren't so sure, and if they're just judging on the pricing, then I'm never going to hear from them. So it's actually going to save me time and money, because I'm not going to be spending my time responding to emails, responding to calls, going over my packages or whatever. I'd rather just put it out there. And if you want it, awesome. And if you don't, you don't. And I've got a lot of people who do. So it's okay. So I'm a big believer in being very upfront and honest with pricing.
Now, I want to dive into this topic of conversation real quick, because we talk about marketing, right? We talk about, how do we spend money on advertising, or how do we spend our money? How do we invest in our own business, right? I feel like enough people don't invest in themselves as photographers, constantly learning through workshops, through mentorships, through, we can say gear. I guess some people don't invest properly in gear, but the investment in yourself, how do you suggest people should that come first
Mhm.
before investing in anything else?
Yeah, I would have saved myself years of time if I was the classic all the things you're not supposed to do for years, right? Like I was so afraid to spend money. Like I'll drop people routinely drop $3,000 on a camera, but they won't spend money investing with a coach to learn how to run their business. You know, that camera is not going to bring you clients. It's great to have and it's going to help. That's like what I was saying, the part about like being a good photographer isn't enough. Um, but it's just like, if you want to become any profession, I can tell you what I spent becoming a teacher. Right? Like there's a level of investment that I do think is important. And there's a lot of wonderful free resources out there. And people love to use the YouTube or whatever. But when it comes to something like this, the problem with trying to DIY it is that you don't know what you don't know. And so you don't even know what you need to be searching for to learn a lot of times. And that's where working with, a mentor or a coach or something like that can be really, really helpful and just save you gobs of time, like gobs of time. I see it in my
Totally.
coaching program all the time, like people that are just like 1 year into their business. And I'm like, that literally took me 10 years to get to. Like, congratulations. Like, it can be really powerful.
Totally. And Colton had a follow-up question. It's kind of goes back to what we were talking about before with narrowing into a niche. Colton's asking, how important is it that you narrow yourself to a niche? I enjoy doing a variety of things and don't feel like I spread myself thin. But from a business standpoint, is it really all about the business standpoint and your client wanting to know that they're hiring the best person for the job and not a jack of all trades?
Well, this is a really common question we get all the time. I get this all the time in my program. And what I tell the clients that the people I coach is that you can fine tooth comb this because you can do a lot of things. Like I've seen people who do weddings and newborns and babies and headshots, but they still have a style. They still have an approach. It still looks like their work, So like I have a new puppy who's here chewing very loudly, her little bone on the floor. But when we got the puppy, I took her into the studio. I did portraits of my dog because I'm that person. But those portraits looked like Sandra Coan portraits, right? Even though I'm not a pet photographer, it looked like my work. So there is a way where you can be diverse in your subjects, but still have a very clear style and a very clear point of view. And the reason why that's so important, why really honing that style is important, is like I was talking about, it's like it really is the quickest, easiest way to stand out. When you're scrolling the gram or whatever, and you're seeing all these photographers, I mean, you do know what I mean? Like we've all had that moment where somebody's work comes up and you're like, I know exactly who that is.
Yeah.
That's really powerful from a marketing perspective. And if you think about it, the best brands in the world have done this. When you see a tiny apple on the back of a case, you know what that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go in and read what the brand is. There's really something to that. And I think as photographers, as visual artists, we are set up to be very successful at creating that kind of a brand if we can lean into it.
Totally. I think it's all like everything. It's all relative, right?
Mm-hmm.
It depends what you want to do. Do you want to be somebody? Some people are more about the art. Some people are more about the business side. If you're more about the business side, then obviously you're going to have to pay attention to some of these things that you may not like as an artist, but that's the way the business world works. And I think being more focused on the artistic side of things, okay, yes, there's less constraints, but you have to understand that the money doesn't always follow if you don't follow. Play by the rules.
Or just like, I really think there's a market for any, like I've seen like the most obscure work, that people do, and there's somebody out there in the world wants it,
Yeah.
I really do. You could be like, I have a passion for photographing like mice on tiny furniture that I've made out of sticks or whatever. And literally there is somebody right now searching the internet for photos of tiny mice on stick furniture. Like I swear to you,
Totally.
there's something for everybody.
Or you don't do it, and then the next thing you know is something goes viral, and you're like, you know how many times I thought about doing that?
I was going to do that. Now that person's famous for tiny mice photos. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's kind of look. I think with everything in the educational spectrum, you have to decide ultimately it's not black and white. It's all gray. It's one giant gray area. And you have to decide, what are you going to take? What advice are you not going to take? What advice is good for you, or it might be good for somebody else, but it's not right for you? And I think that's really what it's about, is really discerning what works. Everybody who's watching this, right? We have people watching from across the world. You're going to have different markets. One thing that flies in my market might not fly in your market. So you're going to have to adjust. You're going to have to pivot. And I think it's really experience. Why you're sitting here is because of your experience. You've obviously been able to weather many storms, because being a business owner and a photographer is one giant storm. It's just figuring out problem after problem. So the fact that you're sitting here is testament that you've been able to solve the problems that come at you. And now you have enough experience to tell others, hey, you can do it. It's just a matter of which direction you want to go. It's a different set of problems, a different set of successes.
And that's what's so fun about it too, because like as entrepreneurs, and every business person's an entrepreneur, there's a lot of photographers who kind of bristle at that title, but if you're running your own business, that's what you are. And it really puts us in this, I mean, think about like the freedom that brings. It's like, no matter where you are in the world, if you're an entrepreneur, you get to decide what you do, you decide your hours, you get to decide how much you make, what people pay you. Like, that makes you some of the luckiest people in the world. Totally. And so there's like, it can be hard, and there's some things you have to learn, but it's also like such a privilege and such a joy. Like, when you figure it out and you do it. One thing I will say, because I just know this because I've worked with photographers around the world, the one universal truth is that people want to do business with businesses they like and trust. And so when you really just start speaking to your people, like I was talking about, really leaning into talking about things that they care about and they're concerned about and that they want to know, people are going to connect with you. And it may take a little time, like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But the work you put in now, you're going to start seeing paying off in like 3 months from now.
Wonderful. Sandra, you always drop gems. It's always good having you on. It's something. I always learn something new, whether it's from our perspective or our business perspective. Look, I host, but at the same time, I'm a consumer of content. So it helps, for all of us. And these are the things that we need to hear, the different perspectives from different people who have worked in different areas of the industry. So it's always great to get that new information. So want to say a huge thank you again. And to all of our viewers, definitely go check Sandra's work out and support. Sandra, do you have any workshops going on, any appearances, anything we should know about coming up?
I'm doing a few workshops next year. I'm doing like photo native. I always do WPPI. I'm actually going to be hosting some in-person workshops in my studio. So which I'm really excited about doing that again. It's been a long time. So people can find out. And then I have online workshops. So I have a business program. That's a group coaching program that if people want information on, let me know. It's really good. And then, of course, my lighting. I teach lighting, and I'm very passionate about that as well.
Awesome. Well, Sandra, always a pleasure. Thank you again for sharing your expertise and time with us. But that is it. It's all we have time for today. Another round of the B&H virtual event space is in the books. Catch y'all next time.